guys, so today we're going to be making some value and texture monsters. We're going to focus on our value and texture vocabulary in here in just a little bit, but to get started, we're going to be drawing our monster. So I'm going to be using a pencil today. I know a lot of you guys like to use Sharpies, but please don't use Sharpies for this part so that we can focus on our value and texture at the end of our project here. I'm going to go ahead and start drawing my monster. If you have an idea for a monster already, that's amazing. Go ahead and put your idea on paper. If you need some help, I have created this monster parts sheet. You can pause your video on it or go back to this part of the video if you want to take a look at it. But for right now, I'm going to move mine to the side so I can see my paper and draw my monster. So I'm going to start, a monster's body can be any kind of shape. It could be literally any shape at all. I'm going to make mine like this big U with flat on top. And then I'm going to give my monster these funny like googly eyes. I'm going to put his eyes up here, 2 circles, fill in the smaller circle. Same thing down here. This one's a little bit smaller. And then I'm going to give him this kind of U-shaped nose with these 3 little U-shapes. And then, let's see, I think I'm going to give him these silly teeth because he's already kind of got like a funny face going on. So I'm going to put his mouth, this blobby shape, organic shape. And then his 2 rectangles for his teeth. And his bottom teeth. There we go. So he looks all sorts of crazy. Alright, then he's going to need some arms. So I'm going to give him like these crab arms. But if you have another idea for arms, that's even better. Make this curved line here. Sorry, these trucks in my neighborhood are so noisy. Oh my gosh, that looks like a wrench. Look in the toolbox. There we go. All right, they don't match, but that's okay. All right, and then I'm going to give him some monster legs. I think I'm going to give him these 4 legs that are kind of attached together. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. Awesome. All right, and then if you want to give your monster like a hat, or maybe your monster needs some horns. Give my monster some horns. Maybe you want to put him some jewelry. Maybe you want to give him a basketball or make her into a ballerina. Any of those extra details you guys want to add to make your monster more unique and more yours is awesome. I love all of that. All right, so we've got our monster here. So now we are going to talk about value. So, in case you do not remember, or in case you are learning this for the first time, value is how light or dark a color is. So I have examples here. This one's with a pen. I made more marks to make a darker value. So I've got my light values, my medium values, and my dark value. This bottom one is with colored pencils. So what I did was I used more pencil pressure to create my values there. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing today, is adjusting our pencil pressure or our crayon pressure to create values. If you don't have different value or don't have colored pencils, you can also do this with a combination of markers and crayons. So I'll show you guys how we're going to do that in just a second. So the next thing is we need to create a texture for our monster. So, textures are the way that things feel. Good. So, there's lots of different textures, and again, I made this fun little monster texture sheet, so if you need to pause the video and look at this, you can. So we have things like spiky textures, hairy, feathers, scales, bridges, which are like bumps. Bumps like you would normally feel, slimy, curly, and fuzzy. So I want you to pick one texture for the monster's body, but don't draw it with your regular pencil. This is where our value is going to come in. So in order to make my monster have different values, I think, what color monster should I have today? I think I need a purple monster. Okay, so I've got my purple colored pencil, and I think I'm going to make my monster have a slimy texture. So I'm going to do this slimy texture using these kind of wavy lines, and I want the outline of my monster and the texture of my monster to have the darkest value. So that means when I'm drawing these lines and the outline, I want it to be as dark as it can be. Don't press so hard that your pencil's going to break, but you definitely want to press hard enough where it's going to make a nice dark line. So I'm going to make some of these wavy lines all over to make my monster look slimy, maybe some drips, because he kind of needs to be dripping if he's got lots of slime. Maybe that's why he's making this crazy face, is because he's so sticky. And then I'm going to do the outline. Alright, so now that I have the darkest value, now I'm going to use my colored pencil, or if you're using a crayon, that's fine too. And I'm going to make a lighter value by shading. So some of you guys are already really good at shading, so this shouldn't be a problem at all. But if you're new to shading, I want you to turn your pencil on its side. Don't hold it like you're going to write some words, because when you hold it this way, you press a little bit harder than you should. If you hold it this way, then you can use a nice light motion to put pressure on your paper. So we're going to use our pencil to lightly shade behind our monster's texture. Now another thing that you can do, and I'm going to do this in my sketchbook, you guys, since I don't want to color on my paper with marker. So say for example you don't have colored pencils, another thing that you could do is you could draw the darker texture with, or the darker value for the texture with your marker, and then you could find the same color crayon. That's blue violet. Blue violet. Why do I have two blue violets? Purple. And you could lightly color over the marker with your crayon so that your texture still shows through. So you have two options. You can do marker and crayon if you don't have colored pencils, but if you do have colored pencils, I'd really like you to practice using your colored pencil to create different pressures and values, because that's something you're definitely going to need when you get into the upper grade levels. All right, so now I've got the texture and my two values, a light value and a dark value on my monster's body. Now, I have his legs and his arms and his horns still, so if you want to go ahead and add more textures to those body parts, that's fine. I actually did the ridge texture on the horns already. But I would like you, if you do add another texture, to do the same technique for the other parts. So if I want him to have red crab claws, maybe they have a bumpy texture on the red crab claws. So I'm going to outline with my red. I don't know why I can never, ever, ever get exactly on that pencil. I'm going to have to erase some of these lines. But then I can do my bumpy texture with the circles, pressing a little bit harder. Maybe I want to fill some of these dots in. Kind of looks like he has the chicken pox. And then I'm going to lightly shade. Oh, before I lightly shade, I better erase some of these pencil lines that I can see behind it. There we go. Now I'm going to lightly shade. Alright, and then I'm going to make his horns orange. And, well, I guess this is yellow-orange. But because I'm using a lighter color, I'm actually going to erase these a little bit because I think my pencil's going to show through. So I want to make these pencil lines a little bit lighter so we don't see that dark gray mark through there. Alright, now I am going to use a black marker to go ahead and do his eyes and the outline for his teeth. for his mouth. I would really like to see also a background of some sort. Like, my monster isn't just floating around in nowhere in white paper land. He needs somewhere to be. So maybe he needs to go to the North Pole. Maybe he needs to go to outer space. Maybe he's going to go to a jungle. So figure out what sort of background your monster wants to live in or where he'd like to visit, and fill up all the white space with your background. So thank you guys so much for participating. Thanks for making some awesome textures and making 2 different values for your monster today. You guys did a great job, and I hope you had fun with it.